Welcome, everybody, to Wise Talk with Heather Criswell. I'm so excited to be here today, and I just want to share with you the idea behind this podcast so we can set the intention for what we are doing here. This podcast, it was created to share stories that reconnect us back to that wisdom within, that inner knowing, that gut feeling that we all have. And when we connect back into that wisdom, we actually experience love for ourselves, love for our children and each other in any circumstance. So today we have an amazing, I found him by divine intervention, I believe, and I'm so excited for what he has to offer. Our guest today is Cjs Mission, and he is the creator of Wordschooler Connect. Thank you so much for being here, CJ. I so appreciate it.
Hey, no problem. Thank you very much for having me on and giving me the opportunity to share the Wordschooler Connect website with your listeners.
Yes. So tell us a little bit about Wordschooler Connect and where it came from, how it was birthed.
Okay. So I am one quarter of what we call the Traveling Chimps, which is my family, and that's sort of our family travel blog and podcast that we do ourselves. And we've been traveling around kind of full time for, about 3 years now, maybe a little longer. And the way that we travel is we travel mostly by doing house sits. And we are currently house sitting in a little Mexican town called Malaque, Mexico, on the Pacific coast, probably about 100 miles south of Puerto Vallarta. And We've been here for about 8 months. And Wordschooler Connect was birthed out of this experience here because when we first got here, there were some straggler Canadian families that were still down here kind of escaping the winter. So we connected with a couple of Canadian families that had kids, and the world was great. And then May rolled around and everybody kind of left. And we were kind of sitting here by ourselves in this little tiny village, wondering if there were other people around or other Wordschoolers around that we could be connecting with and having play dates. So we thought, man, if we had a website where we could log on and see where everybody, all the Wordschoolers are in the world on the map and find people, that would be extremely useful to us in particular. But as we've spread the message out, we're finding that this is kind of the number one thing that the Wordschooler community is looking for in general. So we are about to launch. We've created that tool and we're about to launch it.
That is awesome. And I'll tell you from being in, my son has just turned 5 in July, and we put him in public school because in the neighborhood, all the kids we're going to school. And my son's like, I want to go to school too. And I was like, you sure, buddy?
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, I want to go. And so he ended up going, and we lasted 6 weeks. And and I say that was actually a really long stint for us because not only for him in particular, but for me as well. It just did not fit us. And I've talked to my husband, and we have this dream for ourselves as my business evolves to be able to travel the world. And because we're people, we like to see how people live. We like to see, what their culture is like and what do they have for dinner. And, so we're super excited to do that. And when I ran across you, I was like, oh, this is brilliant, because it is scary to go to foreign countries and not have anybody,
It's really scary. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But it's also not scary enough to not do it, right?
That is absolutely true. And I will also say that once you do it, it's really not that big of a deal. And then you think back going, man, why did I even get all that amped up about leaving the country? It wasn't that big of a deal.
Exactly. And I think that, a lot of people are opening up to this idea that, especially when we are in the schools, the standardized schools are not fitting our children anymore, really. Mm-hmm. I think we have a lot of leaders on this planet that are coming in full force that are saying, no, this isn't going to work for me. And, I mean, my son was in school for 6 hours and 21 minutes and had two 10-minute breaks. That's it.
Yikes. Yeah,
So
that's
it's
crazy.
brutal, you
Yeah,
know?
that's really bad. Yeah, we started on the traditional, like most people, we started on that traditional kind of trajectory as well. And my son actually went to public school through, not through, but like maybe halfway through second grade. And my daughter went to maybe half of the year of kindergarten, and then we pulled them all out. We just weren't, I don't know, we just weren't real thrilled with the whole experience, really.
Agreed. And I think that a lot of people, are challenged with the idea of traveling the world because we assume that it requires a lot of money.
Yeah,
What am I going to do? But people are really making creative ways to make this happen. Like you said, your blog, creating, and it's inspired this business now that will literally connect families around the world in beautiful ways.
literally,
So
literally.
literally, I
Yeah,
mean, this is on my plan for real, is
excellent.
to be able to sign up for this website and be really participating in it in the next
Awesome,
year.
awesome,
That's
awesome.
our that's our goal.
Well,
So
we can't wait to have
so
you.
yeah. So how are you doing this? Like how are you just getting it out there by word of mouth, or are you how
Yeah,
are you connecting everybody?
yeah. So the most powerful thing has been Facebook. I mean, that really has
Okay.
been the most powerful thing. Um, I, I belong to a mastermind group. Are you familiar with mastermind groups?
Yes, yes, absolutely.
So I'm a big, big proponent now of mastermind groups, especially when you're out here traveling the world and you're sort of on an island. It's
Right.
great having conversations with my kids and my wife, but it's very different conversations, and they tend to agree with me all the time. So, I had this idea. I have a few ideas, but I had this Wordschooler Connect idea, but I really didn't have anyone to really bounce the idea off of. And my wife actually found this mastermind group for me, I think on Facebook. So I joined the group and I sat in on it for a couple of weeks. And then it was my turn to be on the quote unquote hot seat. And I pitched this idea and it went over awesome, like just awesome. I got some really good concerns back, some really good, uh, positive feedback as well. And it just gave me the confidence that I needed to actually take the plunge into creating it. So once I did that, I created a landing page where I could collect email addresses from people that would be interested in participating in it. And I floated that out on a couple of Facebook groups, and very rapidly had hundreds and hundreds of emails on this landing page. So that basically just solidified the idea even further. That I'm like, oh my god, I have to create this thing now. I have 600 plus people here that are ready to use it. So that's what I did. And
That's
and and
that's
fa-
fantastic.
yeah, so Facebook has been the primary driver, and in particular, Facebook groups, like the World Schooler group. There's a shoot, I always mess. It's called Lifers, but I can't remember what the acronym is. I'm always location independent families. Sorry, I'm
Oh,
glad
nice.
glad I got that one in there because that's my buddy's page. Um, but that was pretty much the primary driver. I use Twitter as well. Twitter has definitely not been anywhere near the engagement that I get on Facebook. So mostly through the groups, and then I've boosted the post a few times on Facebook as well, with some luck with that as well. So Facebook, I would say, is the primary driver.
Well, and there's really no correlation to, you in business, and especially on online business, they say, oh, you have to do this. You have to create a funnel. You have to create a freebie, and 6 months to 6 million. The whole 9 yards. But what I thought was beautiful about this is following your own wisdom. And these are my words, so if it's not correct for you, let me know. But what I
Okay.
sense for you is that following your own wisdom of, I'm going to just go down this whole, through Facebook. I'm going to go through these groups and I'm just going to put it out there and see what happens, and kind of following that. And look at how many emails you got from that experience, where most people honestly don't get that many emails right off the bat, quite frankly. Like,
Right. No, I know.
I know
Yeah.
from experience.
Yeah. Oh, me too. Me too. Believe me, this isn't the first thing I've floated out there.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, I think when we follow what we love and we really hone in on what we're wanting to do and sharing that gift with the world, it kind of takes on a life of its own, you know?
Right, right,
Like,
absolutely. I mean, for me, it was really just satisfying my own need. It was my own problem that I had in the world, and I wanted to fix it. And it just happens that there's a whole bunch of other people that have the same problem. So it's for me, it's very meaningful work. Like I feel like I have this mission to connect kids all over the world through through this site. So it's very meaningful work, and for me, very authentic work because it's something that I really need in within my lifestyle. You know.
absolutely. Can you give us a definition of what a world schooler is for those of us that, might not know what world schooling is?
Yeah. So
What
world
is a world schooler?
Yeah, world schooling is exactly what it sounds like. It's using the world around you as your school. So it's,
Awesome.
going to other countries, going to other cities, enjoying other cultures, experiencing different foods, learning about the history of that country. We've been in Mexico now for 8 months, and we're going to stay. We're actually leaving Malaki at the end of the week, and we're heading to San Miguel de Allende, where there's some other world schooling families that we've already connected. You actually, during the testing of the Wordschooler Connect website, we connected with a family in San Miguel. So, so the thing works. It definitely works.
That's
So we're going to be
awesome.
heading over there. But that's San Miguel is sort of Mexico's version of the United States, Boston in the United States. So meaning that, Boston was sort of the hotbed of the revolution, where people were conspiring and, in the evenings under candlelight to overthrow the British. And San Miguel is sort of Mexico's version of that. It's where everybody was, collaborating to overthrow the Spanish to gain independence here in Mexico. So it's things like that. That's world schooling right there. As my kids can tell you all about that at age 8 and 11.
I can't even tell you about that at
Yeah.
43.
Yeah, I know. I'm with you. Yeah, my kids are, especially my son, is really into biographies. He reads a lot of biographies.
So, what does a typical day look like for your family? What does a typical day look like in Mexico for your family?
Um, it's pretty laid back. It's been extremely hot here, which sort of limits your ability to get too crazy every day. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So we are basically radical unschoolers. So we don't really have a set curriculum. We don't have a set, schedule per day of you need to read at this time and math at this time, and we don't do any of that. So we let our kids kind of do whatever they feel, whatever strikes them that they want to do that day. That's what they do.
That's amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
So
How do you share with parents that this is possible? Like, it just seems so impossible for the people that are in the 9 to 5 grind, right?
yeah,
Of paying your bills, making sure your house payment's taken care of, you have food on the table, the kids are in school, they're
mhm,
on Common Core and they're learning their ABCs, one, two, threes, like
yeah, yeah.
how do you give the possibility for that to somebody?
Well, I was in that same boat. I did the same thing for a lot of years, and in fact, it was sort of the catalyst behind this lifestyle change. Is I spent not the last 8 years, but I spent my last 8 years in quote unquote corporate America. I spent that time traveling on business Monday through Friday, every single week for 8 years.
Oh,
So I basically was never home. I missed everything. My daughter even asked my wife one time, where does Daddy actually live? So at that point,
that's
I started to
brutal.
kind of get, yeah, it was really, really pretty telling. So at that point, that was when we started thinking like, we got to change some things here. I can't keep doing this. So my wife did a Google search for creative ways of saving money, and the topic of vagabonding showed up, and we sort of latched onto that term of vagabonding. So if you go to like the traveling chimp site, it's like, a full-time traveling vagabond family or something to that effect is like our tagline and stuff. Um, so you know, it takes, I think it's more the parents need to educate themselves about homeschooling, unschooling more so than the kids not getting an education, if that makes any sense. So meaning like, we started this unschooling not even realizing that that's what we were doing.
Right.
And it felt very like, man, are we doing the right thing? Is this, it felt really like almost like wrong. But
Yeah.
but it's not. It's the adults are the ones that need to get over that whole traditional mindset in public school and all that kind of stuff, because the kids are going to be just fine. Get them go learn what they want to learn, and they'll love learning because they're learning what they want to learn, and they'll be just fine. They learn math because they have to go to the store and make change. They know the math that you and I use every day. They already know that.
Right. Well, and I think it's also too honoring their wisdom within, right? Like what they really love on this planet. And,
Absolutely.
if your son's into biographies or, my son's into taking things apart and putting them back together, right?
Awesome.
And
Yeah.
so all my pens are dismantled. Everything is just, I go into my drawer and everything is just completely dismantled. And what I've realized is that it is about following that gut feeling and that wisdom of like, I'm interested in this, and honoring those feelings for our kids, and seeing the possibility that great growth and learning comes from that experience, not just, sitting. And I realized that when he brought home 12 pages of homework for a kindergartner for 4 days. So it was 3 pages a day. And it was literally like, what color is this apple? What color? And I just kept thinking to myself, all I could think of was, I just want to give them some apples and let them look at them, taste them, feel them. Like,
Exactly.
Can we learn that way?
God, there's just so much research to suggest at this point that homework is completely useless.
Yes. And, we went round and round, and I actually opted out of it. And I said to his teacher said, well, you realize he's going to get an F. And I was like, don't care. Like, because again, like you said, my husband, by the time he gets home, he has 2 hours with my son. And that's literally to have dinner, to get a bath, and get to bed. So, I didn't want to spend those 2 hours working on a homework page that literally will come to him in due time, right?
Exactly. It just causes so much undue stress within the family structure, and like that, it's just not the time. That's time that families should be spending together doing whatever they love to do together, not doing, it's just absurd.
Exactly. So tell me, did you guys just save up for this? Did you just up and quit your job? How did it look for you guys?
No, it's actually something that we probably could have started years in advance. We could have easily, while I was spending those 8 years traveling on business, we could have probably just picked up and started doing it then. In all, hindsight's 2020. But,
of course.
But no, I typically have had jobs where they're sort of quote unquote remote style jobs, and I certainly do now, and I certainly did at the time that we headed out on the beginning of this adventure. So I basically, as long as I have an internet connection, I'm good. I have a business technologies company, so we implement and manage software that companies use to manage their buildings and their assets and properties and leases and things like that.
That's fantastic.
So I never quit a job or anything like that. We didn't save up and quit a job. I've been working the whole time.
It's also opening up to that opportunity that you can still do work, remotely, especially nowadays we can do that, come to a space where you've created something on the go that this Wordschoolers Connect, it's going to be crazy huge. So, that might also take over your whole world, like.
It could, and honestly, that was not my intent. But I think at this point, I've been so obsessed over it for the last couple of months building the thing, and I've put so much, blood, sweat, and tears into it that I would actually welcome that idea.
Yeah. So how will it work as far as once you connect on Wordschoolers Connect? Like, how will that work so that I can connect with somebody in the same country or wherever I'm located?
Yeah, it's really, really simple. And at least for the time being, and hopefully forever, it's just a free tool. But all you do is like, there's a 2-step process to create an account or create a profile. Once you create your profile, there's a quote unquote map page that has all the profiles down the left side and has a map of the world on the right side. And there's pins in the map where everybody is. So, and then also there's a search function. So if you just wanted to put in, Boston, Massachusetts, it'll bring up all the people that are in Boston, Massachusetts. And you can also put in some date ranges and see who's going to be there at a later date or whatnot. And then the map is also intuitive too. So you can click into the map and like focus in on Boston or LA or anywhere in the world and see who's there. And then once you find somebody, you can look at their profile and you could say, oh, they have kids about the same age as me. And then you can send them a direct message through the tool and saying, hey, it looks like we have kids the same age. Would you like to get together and hang out? And that's it. That's pretty much the tool right there. Yeah, pretty cut and dry.
Yeah, and the great thing about it is it's really connecting people around the world that are in the same space of, look, we want something different. And I think that that's the biggest challenge with change in any society, right? It's the idea that this can be different. And when I was standing, and I believe I had to have the experience at my son's school to understand what parents are going through, because when I stood there and talked to them, we all were kind of saying the same thing. This homework stuff is stupid. Common Core is dumb. Like, we all had these, why don't they have more recess? Why aren't they, experiencing more hands-on learning opportunities? All the things we were talking about, but everybody just kind of thought, well, there's really nothing we can do, so we don't do anything,
Right. I would agree with that totally. But it's a little bit frustrating because there are countries out there that are really good examples of just that, like letting the kids do what they want to do, have longer recesses. And you can see that they're the ones that are dominating in the world of education. So it's not like there isn't a blueprint that we could be following to better things. They just choose to not do it.
Yeah. And I think that the system has gotten so big in the United States that it has so many layers to it that what I realized is being in a parent with the principal, being in that conference with him, they had like a parent, coffee conference. And what I realized is everything I said to him, he goes, nope, my hands are tied on that. Nope, my hands are tied on that. And I realized very quickly that this was a system that was not going to necessarily change in my lifetime. And so I literally have to seek out other systems that work and maybe even, quite frankly, create my own, if you will.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
To help parents see an alternative. And that's what I loved about Wordschooler Connect, was that alternative to what we are all experiencing. And again, I see people all the time, well, I don't work online, or but aren't there opportunities for like people to have free housing or
there are
cheaper housing?
Yeah. So I mean, that is always a big sort of misnomer, is that only the rich can do this, and that's definitely not the case. I do okay, but I'm not rich by any means. But no, I mean, I honestly, so far this year, 2016 we're in, right?
Yeah.
So far this year, I have not paid any rent or mortgage, but I do have a short-term lease the end of this week through next month in San Miguel. So at the end of 2016, I will have paid for 1 month of rent, and we bridged. The rest of it was all done by house sitting, so we live for free basically by watching people's houses.
And is there like a website or something that connects you to that? Like, how did you even find that?
Yeah, there are. There's actually numerous sites. I would say that the two biggest ones that we've had success with is Trusted House Sitters and House Carers. So you set up an account on there. They're both fairly cheap. I think Trusted is like $100 for the year, and House Carers I think is $50 for the year. But I always say that that's like one night stay in a cheap motel through like Priceline or Hotwire. That's basically the cost of one night stay in a motel, and then you could potentially, like us, fill in the entire year of free stays. So you basically, homeowners post their opportunities, house sitters create a profile, and they apply to those opportunities, and then the homeowners whittle through what they're looking for, what they're not looking for. Typically have like a Skype call with them ahead of time, and then they make their choice. And I feel like we've been sort of, I think a lot of people think it's crazy that we do it because we're a family. But I think that in a lot of ways has actually helped us. I think people feel comfortable having a family especially if they're a family themselves and it's maybe a pet sitting opportunity. It's about 50-50 pet sitting, house sitting. But if the dogs are used to having a family around, I think families enjoy having another family around,
Absolutely. Do you ever worry
Yeah.
about safety for your family, for you guys, for your children in these foreign countries?
No, no. So, I mean, uh, obviously it's a concern. But once you break through that barrier, through that fear barrier, and actually just do it, and then you get into these countries, and you're like, wait a second, man, all these people are just like us. And they just love families, just like we love families, and everyone just smiles and nods, and we've never had any issues. I mean, this area we're at's been completely safe. I think maybe there's been like two crimes that I'm aware of over the past year that had nothing to do with us or being American or anything like that. So I mean, obviously, you just need to be mindful, be cognizant of your surroundings, and go with your gut instinct, I would say. But so far, what we've encountered is nothing but peace and love down here, and a lot of I think what the maybe the U.S. politicians and the media back in the U.S. try to portray, especially Mexico, as being this like nasty, scary, evil place where all this bad stuff happens. I haven't encountered that, to be real honest.
That is that is so comforting and so beautiful because it gives another perspective of people around the world than, like you said, than our media, than our politicians. We kind of I believe, bury ourselves around this fear, right? Wrap ourselves in fear. And what I've realized traveling, and I haven't traveled the world by far, but we have traveled quite a bit. And what I've realized is every single time, like when we went deep into Mexico, we did a tour and they were giving out these different tours. And so we got a guy and I said, listen, I don't want your standard tour. I want to see where you live. I want to see, at the time I owned a preschool and I was like, I want to see what your schools look like. I want to see what your preschools look like. And lo and behold, he took us to his daughter's preschool, gave us this beautiful tour, things that we never would have seen. And I realized in
Yeah,
that moment that, gosh, there's so much beauty in this world that we're fearful of. And when we actually connect back into that wisdom and that knowing that humanity is good,
yeah, yeah,
like we are good
yeah.
people.
I mean, there's some bad seeds in all cultures, but you know, that there's no escaping that anywhere in the world. But that sounds, your description of how you were treated on your tour sounds about right. People down here just seem to want to go above and beyond to be nice to you and please you, and I'm not shocked at all that they took you on a cool tour like that.
Yeah, it was just phenomenal. And I realized that what we have been told is not necessarily the truth. And for us to experience that out in the world. And I know that there's hesitation even with people online, that there could be a possible hesitation with, just connecting with somebody online and meeting up with them randomly.
Yeah,
And with that being said, the people that are on World Schoolers Connect are not the people that are looking to harm people. Like that's,
I hope not.
no, I mean, and it is a like-minded community. I mean, like there's so many homeschooler communities. In every community, there's like, different groups of people. And what I would love to say to people is that, and if you feel like it's not the right match for you, like if intuitively you go, I'm not really interested in meeting that person, then let it go
Yeah,
and find somebody
right.
else, because
Yeah.
that there is more good on this planet than bad. That I know for sure. And
I would agree. I was thinking about that yesterday, and I'm probably going to completely butcher this, but I I remember seeing a quote recently, and I don't know who it was or what, but it was something to the effect that 99% of us out here in the world just want peace and love, and then it's the 1% that tell us that we're at war.
right, right.
You know,
And I believe that. I believe that with my heart. And people will say to me, well, Heather, you're just Pollyanna or you're delusional or, you're just hopeful. And if I don't hold that space for humanity, then why bother being here? Like for real.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, totally, totally.
So Yeah, that's just a whole nother side note. But
Yep.
so how do you deal with like money and communication as far as like if you don't speak the language, how does that work for you?
Well, well, all of us have tried to really make a good effort to learn the language,
Right.
and we and actually this part of Mexico that we're in is very quote unquote Mexican, so it's been sort of sink or swim. There's a few people that speak English here, but not much. So you pretty quickly figure out the key words that you need to get by in life.
Well,
So I also, my wife and I, kind of decided at the beginning of this year that this was the year we were gonna, we set our goals for the year, and one of our goals was that we were gonna start putting some stamps in our passport. So knowing that, we were sort of targeting Mexico, Central America, and South America to start, mostly because we could drive there. So we started using Duolingo back right around the first of the year. And we've been real diligent in doing at least 5 minutes every single day on Duolingo to learn the language. And at this point, I'm certainly not fluent, but I've learned quite a bit. I can get by in life.
that's fantastic. And I think part of it too is that again, it's just opening up all these new avenues for you and your wife and your family that you wouldn't be. I mean, would you really be learning a language if you were sitting here, going to the Halloween fest, like,
Probably not.
probably
I
not.
wouldn't have much. Yeah, there wouldn't be much ambition to do that, I guess.
And everybody to each his own, but I think that people that are feeling like this world is not enough for them, and that's what I've experienced with a lot of my clients when I do calls with clients, is
Uh,
that it just, yes, you have a great job, you make lots of money, you have a beautiful home and nice cars, but something's off. It just doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel good,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know? And I think that that's where a lot of us are waking up to there's more to this than meets the eye. And
Oh, I think so too. I think that there's been a big increase in a big growth in the quote unquote gig economy, where a lot more people are getting fed up with the cubicle and the 9 to 5, and they're jumping into the consulting slash freelancer type work, and going after their real passions. And I also see a huge number of people pulling their kids out of school as well, and going down, maybe not a complete radical unschooler mode, but certainly a homeschooling curriculum, and kind of pulling kids out of that broken system.
yeah, I actually have friends that bought a boat and they are literally
Yeah,
traveling the world on a boat with their families.
that's
Two
amazing.
two
Yeah,
kids.
man, I've seen so many. That's so cool. I know a few people that are doing that as well. It's funny when we started out on this trip. We created all of our traveling chimps social media sites, and started growing our Twitter followers and tweeting at people and just learning about the other people out here in this lifestyle. And when we first started down this path, we thought we were special. We're like, oh, cool, we're kicking the 9 to 5 and getting rid of our house and getting down to living out of a backpack and driving around the country. And we really quickly realized that we aren't special at all, man. There's people doing some amazing stuff, way more amazing than driving around the US in a car. There's people, like, I saw people that are families that are kayaking around the world,
That's amazing.
literally kayaking with like little kids. Like, 5-year-old boy was one of them. I was like, oh my god, these people are way more extreme than us. A lot of bicycling families, biking around. We had some people on our podcast a couple months back, and they're from Mexico. Really cool couple. They have a site called Vega Boom. I think it's a YouTube channel called Vega Boom, and they started at the top of Alaska, and they're bicycling from the top of Alaska down to the tip of Argentina, and they're doing woofing. Have you ever heard of woofing?
Never, never.
So woofing, I'm going to totally butcher this acronym, but it's basically like the worldwide organic farming something or other. So basically, it's these websites where you can find jobs on organic farms, and basically you trade your labor for free places to stay and a night's dinner.
Oh my
So
gosh.
they're working on these organic farms from Alaska all the way down to Argentina, riding their 10 speeds.
Oh dear God.
It's cool. So there's people doing some
Okay.
really amazing things out there.
I'm so not that cool for real. Like,
Yeah, I couldn't do that. I honestly couldn't do that
yeah.
either. I wouldn't mind working on organic farms here and there. That'd be cool, but I don't know about bicycling that far.
Yeah, no, I go down the street and I'm like, okay, I'm done. That's good. Like, all done. But
Yeah,
yeah, just being open to that idea that there's so much out there and so much possibility. And I think that that's what we as people just need to start sharing our stories. And that's what Wise Talk is all about, is sharing those stories of how we followed our gut feeling, our heart, our wisdom, however you want to say it,
yeah,
but how we followed it and actually found some beautiful gifts in life that, you know, you can't ever replicate. I mean, the things that you're doing right now are things that people don't do in their entire lifetime,
yeah.
for real.
I would say that everything you want in life is on the other side of fear.
Yes. Yes. Oh, that's beautiful. Like, that's seriously a tweetable moment. That one is really good.
Yeah,
It's so,
I'm sure.
so
I'm sure I
true.
stole that from somewhere. I'm not sure where,
I
but
know, right? But it doesn't matter. It's recycled. It's good. It's recycled. It's good.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's been a big at the beginning of the year. I'm big on like writing down my goals for the year. But this year I sort of took it a step farther and did like an intention for the year, I guess.
Yes.
And it was to be fearless. So I do a lot of like hashtag fearless and that kind of stuff on our social media. So
Well, that's awesome. I am so glad that I had the opportunity to connect with you, and thankful to you because my plate has been incredibly full. In full disclosure, I was like, I'm coming. And he just was consistently checking in with me to make sure that we got this podcast. So it was important and
yeah,
valuable, and is going to help so many people see possibility, follow their own wisdom, and know that whatever part you take from it, whether you want to kayak around the world or boat, or you want to visit, even within the United States, whatever that is for you, that it's possible
yep,
and you can follow that.
it's all
And
feasible for
that's what I
sure.
love about all of this.
Yep.
So the last question I have for you is, what is your biggest moment for yourself where you followed your wise inside, where you were wise inside and you said, this is my heart and this is what I'm following, and it turned out amazing for you, if that makes sense. What was a moment in that you experienced that?
Well, I would think this year, in looking at my intention for the year, I think just bringing my family to Mexico was probably the largest moment of the year that turned into something so great and such a cool experience. And we're going to head back to the United States at the end of the year for the holidays, but we're going to come back to Mexico and then we'll see where we go from there. And I'm hoping that Wordschooler Connect is a success, and that'll be sort of my second overcoming fear for 2016. And it's one of the reasons I was kind of kept following up with you and whatnot. I was just looking for any opportunity to share the story and share the site with the world.
Absolutely. And I am going to be one of your biggest cheerleaders because,
Excellent.
I just think it's beautiful, and I love what you're doing, and I love how you're connecting people and also giving children the opportunity to really experience life and learning and love in a way that feels good to them.
Yep.
And I know that from my own son, just watching him suffer and be, when he says, Mommy, they say don't scribble, but I'm not scribbling. I like coloring this way. It's the way he colors. Like, it's not scribble.
Yeah.
And,
Yep.
I think that that's powerful. And when we can hear that in our
It
own
is.
children, we can see a different world for ourselves too, that we are all uniquely, individually perfect in who we are in this moment, and how we shine on this planet. So
Absolutely.
yeah, so tell us how people can find you, and your
Yeah.
blog and World Schoolers Connect. How can people find you and connect with you
hmm
guys?
So most importantly, right now, I think by the time that this podcast airs, the site should be live. We're literally putting the finishing touches on. We've been testing and going back and forth all day with my developer. So we should be able to launch here in the next day or so. So I think by the time this podcast is heard, it should be live. And you can go to worldschoolerconnect.com and create a profile from there. It's free. And you can also connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. All of it's, you can find us by just searching for Wordschooler Connect. If you're interested in my family stuff, we're on all the different social media platforms as the Traveling Chimps.
Awesome.
And we have travelingchimps.com as well, which kind of started off as a blog. It's been mostly a podcast lately. So this year I've been kind of just focusing on teaching people how to do this, basically. So each podcast is sort of a different chapter of how you do it.
That's awesome. I'm so connecting in with that too, because this is truly one of my missions and one of my intentions for next year for real is that we get on this path, because I know myself first and foremost that I get ants in my pants and I don't want to be in the same place. And I actually felt guilty about it because I'm like, oh, I'm supposed to be this mom that, we have the white picket fence and he has the same friends all his life. And, I had all these ideas of what family was supposed to be for us and what our family was supposed to be. And what I've realized is I don't want that. I don't like being around the same people for years. I like coming and going. I like meeting different people. I like hearing different perspectives.
Yeah,
and,
I'm with you. I hear you.
It's not to trash one or the other. Yeah. It's just my preference. Yeah. That's me as a person. And
right, exactly. There's no right or wrong way to do it. Right.
Yeah.
So I will say that if you need any guidance or support or whatnot, just reach out to me. I'm always willing to share my experiences and help you out.
Yeah, super exciting. Super exciting. So thank you so much, CJ, for joining me. And
thank you.
We are going to put this out into the world in a beautiful way and help people remember that this is all possible. So thank you for sharing your wisdom and your love. And I look forward to all the greatness that's coming your way, because it is magical. I know that. I sense it.
Thank you.
So
excellent. I love it. Thank you.
Take care, and thanks again so much.
Okay.